Christina and Paul had been married for 4 years, but recently Christina had changed jobs. At her previous job, she had no opportunities for professional growth, and her salary was often delayed. However, her new job was much better in terms of working conditions and offered good prospects. At first, Paul was happy for his wife because she had refused to give up her old job, even though she liked the team where she worked. However, she also made many friends at her new job. Unfortunately, Paul's joy did not last long. A month after starting work, Christina began to stay late at the office. At first, it was only half an hour, then an hour, and eventually 2 hours. At first, Paul picked her up after work, but after several delays of 30 to 40 minutes, Christina insisted on getting home on her own. Concerned about the extended work hours, Paul asked her if she was being compensated for the overtime. Christina replied that it was normal practice for newcomers in the company to gain the trust of management. She explained that the company used different programs, which took more time than expected to complete tasks. Therefore, she had no choice but to work late, and since she was the only new employee, no one bothered her after hours, allowing her to finish her tasks safely. Despite his misgivings, Paul reluctantly agreed to the delays. He realized it was important for Christina to demonstrate her commitment to her job and her desire for long-term employment. He wanted to help her settle into her new workplace and prove herself. From time to time, Paul would check on his wife to make sure she wasn't overworking herself. One evening, he decided to call her, but she didn't answer for a long time. Concerned, he assumed she might have gone somewhere far away or was busy and ended the call. After about 10 minutes, he tried calling her again, and this time she answered, sounding quite cheerful. "Honey, you're running late at work. When will you be home?" he asked. "Oh, I'm still at work. I just have one last thing to finish up." "I'll be home soon," she replied. As Christina was about to hang up, there was a strange sound in the background, like an alarm clock or notification. Paul noticed it but didn't pay much attention. Over the course of the week, he periodically heard similar sounds during their conversations, assuming they were computer notifications. One day after work, Paul arranged to meet with his old university friend Patrick. They agreed to meet at the mall, as Patrick needed to pick something up, and then grab a bite to eat. When Paul arrived, he noticed Patrick coming out of the appliance repair department looking extremely pleased. They exchanged greetings and Patrick exclaimed, "I finally got my smartwatch back. I felt lost without it all week." He continued to fiddle with his gadget, showing it to Paul. While they were sitting in the cafe, Paul suddenly heard the familiar beeping sound again, which made him turn around to look for its source. "Yes, it's my watch," Patrick reassured him. "Don't worry about it. You can also use it to set alarms or reminders." He turned off the sound and Paul finally realized the source of the strange noise he had been hearing. It was puzzling, as Christina didn't have such a gadget, and she had said she was the only new employee in the office. Now, Paul couldn't shake the feeling that his wife was hiding something from him. The next day, Paul decided to visit his wife's workplace, to get a feel for the atmosphere and the people she worked with. Under a plausible pretext, he took a day off and went to her office. As he approached her desk and they began to converse, Paul suddenly signaled to Christina to be quiet. The familiar squeak returned. Intrigued, Paul turned in the direction of the sound and noticed a man at a nearby desk. The man glanced at the screen of his smartwatch and then turned it off. Their eyes met and Paul recognized him. After carefully studying the man's face, Paul realized he had seen him before. It was the first day Paul had picked his wife up from work. As Christina was getting into the car, the man had come out of the business center for a smoke. When Paul asked Christina about him, she brushed him off, suggesting that he was probably someone from a neighboring office. She quickly dispelled any suspicion that she wasn't alone in the room, and Paul didn't doubt his wife for a second. She had always been truthful. But now it turned out that this person was actually a co-worker. They were socializing with others near the refrigerator, joking and laughing. Feeling challenged, one of Christina's co-workers approached Paul and teasingly asked, "The new girl's husband, huh?" Laughing, he added, "Lucky you." Another co-worker joined in the banter, making a suggestive remark that caught Paul's attention. As the tension mounted, One of the colleagues provocatively mentioned that he would stay late to show Christina a new program, causing her to blush and look away. An angry Paul quickly lost his temper and got into a fight with the man, leading to a physical brawl. Co-workers intervened to break up the fight and escort Paul out of the office. Despite his bruises, Paul chose to end the scandal. Christina, flustered and embarrassed, followed her husband outside as he walked to his car. She was overcome with worry as she looked at the wounds on Paul's face. She reached out to touch him, but he yanked her hands away with force. "Don't you dare," he growled. "Tell me, did you sleep with him? Darling, look what you've done to yourself. Just admit it," Paul insisted, unwilling to back down. Tears welled up in Christina's eyes as she realized her secret was about to be revealed. She nodded slightly, covering her face with her hands. "How could you?" her husband whispered, disappointment heavy in his voice. "What did you think was going to happen?" "Please forgive me," she sobbed. Paul could barely contain his anger. He rushed to his car and drove home, figuring Christina would have enough sense not to follow him back to the apartment. However, to his surprise, she showed up on his doorstep, begging for forgiveness. She offered various solutions, quitting her job, starting a family, taking care of him, and restoring their once strong bond. But Paul found her pleas absurd and coldly ordered her to pack her bags and leave. The next day, he filed for divorce. Christina took refuge with her unmarried sister, not expecting to continue her relationship with her former lover. All she wanted was to forget the painful ordeal and continue her work in peace. She didn't know that her coworker had a reputation for having similar affairs with every new female employee he thought wouldn't stay with the company for long. As Christina's worries consumed her, she began to make more and more mistakes at work. Eventually, a gross error in dealing with a key client led to her termination. A moment of short-sightedness and a co-worker's ego led to the destruction of yet another family. Every day, people are surrounded by numerous temptations, but the choices they make between family and fleeting pleasure ultimately determine their future destiny. Cheating Secrets Podcast, like me,